Shabbat Shalom, Yisrael, on another beautiful and set-apart day. I am joined by my beloved brother, Jonathan, and my name is YediYah, the Inspirer, and we are here with another inspirational message from our wonderful Abba Yah and his wonderful word. Today's study is entitled, An Appointed Time. An appointed time. And I know more often than not we reference the scripture about there's a time and a place, there's a time for mourning, a time for grieving, a time for happiness, a time for rejoicing. But this particular appointed time literally occurs when it's good and when it's ready. It's like a good cake in the oven. It ain't done until it's done. It ain't gooey until it's gooey. And that's what we're going to get into today. Now, when I prayed about the study or a message to present, I definitely was not expecting this one. I don't know the correlation, but our thoughts are not his thoughts, and our ways are not his ways, and we always going to need to be cool with that. So I want to start in the scripture in Genesis. I believe it's chapter 16, 1.
Genesis chapter 16, verses 1 through 6. Now, Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, who was named Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold now, the mighty one, or Yah, hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go unto my maid. It may be that I obtain children by her.
All right, let's freeze there. Let's go to Genesis chapter 15 and verse 1.
Genesis 15 and 1. After these things, the word of Yah came unto Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield, and thy exceeding great reward. And Abram said, Yah, my Elohim, my master, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless? And the steward of my house is Eleazar of Damascus. And Abram, behold to me, And Abram said, Behold to me, thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir. And behold, the word of Yah came unto him, saying, This shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thy own bowels shall be thine heir.
So Abraham is saying unto Abiyah, Father, I don't have any child, I don't have any seed. I desire such a thing. I love you. We good friends. We cool. But I would like an heir, unto myself. But if I don't have a child, I do have a servant, Eleazar. He's been cool. He's been wonderful. He's been a blessing. But Abiyah is letting him know right here, no. It's not going to be Eleazar, as great as he may be. It's going to be straight from you, straight from your own bowels, your own loins. It's going to be your own seed coming straight from you. Continue on.
Still in 15?
Yep.
Okay. Genesis 15 and verse 5. And he brought him forth abroad and said, Look now toward heaven, and tell the stars, if thou shalt be able to number them. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be. And he believed in Yah, and he counted it to him for righteousness. And he said unto him, I am Yah, thy Elohim, that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees, to give thee this land to inherit it.
So the first thing we read was in Genesis 16, where Sarai was telling Abraham for him to go in unto her handmaid. Somewhere in between there, Sarah was overhearing Abraham being told that he's going to have a child at an appointed time later. And she laughed. I know we've all read that story where, she overheard it, she laughed, we're older now. How are we going to, reproduce children, or people are going to laugh at me and my, her old age that, she's going to, have a child. But this is what Abiyah ordained, and he said, from the bowels of Abraham. Well, I guess Sarah took it as well. Maybe my handmaid Hagar can do it, but at least it's still, it's still coming from Abraham, of course. Let's go back to 16, that was where you were,
yep,
and pick up where you left off when you was reading about Hagar.
Okay. 16 and verse 3, I believe.
Sure.
Okay. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her handmaid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. And he went unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. And Sarai said unto Abram, My wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid unto thy bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes, and Yah judged between me and thee. Verse 6. But Abram said unto Sarai, Behold, thy maid is in thine hand. Do to her as thou pleasest. And when Sarai had dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. And a Malachim, or an angel of Yah, found her by a fountain of water.
So we're going to stop there. So later on you find that Yah told Abraham and Sarah, the seed that I am ordaining from the two of you is going to come from the two of you. There is a formula that happens when the Most High has something for you, for us, for our individual goals, for our individual missions, our individual purposes. And when he maps out and gives instructions for something and how he wants it done a certain way for a certain reason. Have y'all ever had, if y'all grew up anyway the way I did, I had plenty of aunties. And whenever the auntie was in the kitchen cooking up something, you better get out of her kitchen. Get out the way. Don't interrupt nothing. Don't touch that stove. Don't ask me how long is this going to take. Don't ask me what am I putting in it. Don't you worry about all that. When it's done, I'll let you know, and you can sit down and you can eat it when you enjoy it when I let you know. Don't interrupt the process. Don't make me catch an attitude. I'll throw a shoe at you. Somehow there were shoes just, I don't know, like just under a cabinet, next to the shoe. Just ready to toss at a child at any given moment. Because when they're in the kitchen and they doing their thing, they don't want to be interrupted. It's a chemistry set. Cooking takes a lot. That's why I don't do it. And it's very much a process. You have to really watch. You have to know what you're doing. You have an internal clock. You have a timer on top of the stove. And you have a wristwatch. But it's very important to not interrupt the process or add or take away any ingredients that the recipe did not call for. And as we read about Abraham and Sarah, it didn't matter that the recipe wasn't going to be complete until they were 100 years old. That's how long it needed to stay in the oven. But that doesn't mean to go and add a different ingredient in Hagar when he ordained it to come from Abraham and from Sarah. Don't change the Most High's recipes. You feel me? So let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 1. Because there's a lot of recipes and formulas in these scriptures that make it very, very clear unto us, this is the formula. Are we going to stick to it? Or are we going to attempt to lean on our own understanding because of what our flesh thinks? Because Abba doesn't have an age. Maybe he had them to wait till they was 100 years old to get away from the people they used to hang out with in their 50s. Maybe he didn't want their children being raised around the other children. There could be a million different reasons, but instead of sitting around speculating on why you think he's doing what he's doing, get out of his kitchen and wait until the food is done, and he'll let you know when it's time to eat.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
First Samuel.
Sir. In the first book of Samuel, chapter 1, verse 1. Now there was a certain man of Ramathaim Zokim, of the Mount Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, and the son of Eliud, the son of Tohu, the son of Zeph, or Zuph, and Ephrathite. A lot of names going on here. Verse 2, and he had 2 wives, and the name of the one was Hannah, and the name of the other Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. And this man went up out of his city yearly to worship and sacrifice unto Yah of hosts in Shiloh. And the 2 sons of Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of Yah, were there. And when the time was that Elkanah offered, he gave to Peninnah his wife, and to all her sons and her daughters portions. But unto Hannah he gave a worthy portion, for he loved Hannah. But Yah had shut up her womb.
So Yah closed her womb. He didn't allow that oven door to be open for a bun to go in, right? That was by his choice, by his design. And although Peninnah was able to have children, and and again, it caused a little bit of strife between her and Hannah. This was still done by Yah. All right, keep going.
Verse 6. And her adversary also provoked her sore, for to make her fret, because Yah had shut up her womb. And as he did so year by year, when she went up to the house of Yah, so she provoked her. Therefore she wept and did not eat. Then said Elkanah, her husband, to her, Hannah, why weepest thou? Why are you crying? And why eatest thou not? And why is thy heart grieved? Am I not better to thee than 10 sons?
So he kind of knew what was going on with her. He knew that she wanted to, bear children for him and such. And, her sister wife was getting to have children, and she wants to have children as well. But this man did not love her any less. He didn't treat her any different. He didn't make a difference between them just because one was giving him children, the other one wasn't. He still sacrificed for her. He still loved her. He still adored her. But there was something in her that really wanted to have a child. But sometimes when we really, really want something, we only think we really, really want it. People say, man, you didn't want it bad enough. You didn't want it bad enough. I'm here to tell you, you didn't want it good enough. You didn't want it well enough. You didn't want it really done enough. You didn't want it in a righteous way. And again, I'm not in the mind of Hannah by any stretch as to why it may have been going on. Because if your mindset is that you only want to have children because other people are having children around you and you want one too, sometimes that's not a good enough reason to have something. Everybody else got a car and driving around, the bus sometimes is just going to have to be all right. Because at least now you know how to do that in case you get a car one day and then it break down, you got a backup. There's all many different scenarios of why something isn't working out the way it is and why something is not working out for you the way it is, which by y'all standards is actually working out. All right? Keep going.
Hallelujah. Verse 9. So Hannah rose up after they had eaten at Shiloh and after they had drunk. Now Eli, the priest, sat upon a seat by a post of the temple of Yah. And she was in bitterness of soul, and prayed unto Yah, and wept sore. 11, she vowed a vow and said, O Yah of hosts.
And here it is. Now we know the scripture says don't make vows, don't make promises. But she was at the end of her rope. She done stopped eating, she done stopped drinking, she done stopped smiling. She got a great husband, but she's just like, this is what I want, this is what I want. And remember I said earlier, sometimes you want something so bad, but it sometimes needs to cross that line over into wanting something in a very good way. And here was the vow that she said.
If thou would indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid, and remember me, and not forget thine handmaid, but will give me unto thine handmaid a child, then I will give him unto Yah all the days of his life, and there shall be no razor coming upon his head.
I will give him to you, Father. Now, she just doesn't want a child just because other people have one, or people are picking at her and making fun of her because her womb is closed. This might be the point that Yah was trying to get her to, so that she is in that humble and contrite spirit and in that mindset that she made a vow to offer this child up to the Father, so the Father may guide this child in a way that no living man can, that no living mother can. But I will bring this child into this world for you, Abba, to use as you see fit. Much like all of us want to be used as living vessels in his temples for the Father to carry out his missions through us and letting our light so shine. But this was a vow and a promise she made. And considering how long she'd been longing for this and how from bad to how good enough she really wanted this, Abba knew her heart. He knew that she meant it. What happened next?
Verse 12, and it came to pass, as she continued praying before Yah, that Eli marked her mouth. Now Hannah, she spake in her heart, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she had been drunk.
She prayed so hard, he thought she was drunk. She wasn't drunk. She was high off the Most High, off his ruach. The Spirit was flowing through her. She really meant it. She prayed until she couldn't speak no more. Although he mistook it for her being drunk, it's a beautiful thing when you get to that point where you are right there. You pray without ceasing. You don't give up on what you want. And again, sometimes it's a mindset that he is waiting for. I remember I prayed for months looking for a place to live. And the day I said, you know what, Abba, whether I get a new place or not, I'm going to make do with what I got where I am. And no sooner than it came out of my mouth and meant it, I got a new place. It's a mindset. It's a spiritual mindset. You start with the renewing of your mind, and we are not always equipped to renew our minds on our own. Sometimes it takes really desiring something to cross us into the threshold of desiring it in a righteous way, because we all want stuff. There ain't a person in this room that don't sit around sometimes and think about, oh, this would be nice, but that sounds. And I'm bougie. I'm always thinking about something. And I got to cast it off, because not everything you want is good for you, and it's not always the right time. Yeah, I remember back in the day when people actually wore watches for the function of time. Before you had iPhones that just has a clock on it. You actually had to know what time it is. But there was something interesting about these watches, right? Somehow everybody had a wristwatch, but because we weren't in the digital time period, everybody had a different time on their clock. It's the same way with your spirit. Everybody's on a different clock. Sarah and Abraham was on a different clock. Hannah is on a different clock than her sister wife Peninnah. And then we're going to talk about Ruth in a second too. Everybody had a different wristwatch. You ask somebody what time it is, three different people is going to give you 3 different times, because each and every person's time is appointed to that person. We are uniquely and beautifully and wonderfully made, and a little bit peculiar as well, and we all have our own time clock for the things that Abba has for you. Your blessings don't always come at the same time as somebody else's. Rejoice with them that are rejoicing. Mourn with them that mourn. And pray that they give it back to you on the other side when it is your appointed time. Let's continue on.
Still in 1 Samuel.
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm still in 1 Samuel, I'll read 14 again. And Eli said unto her, How long wilt thou be drunken? Put away thy wine from thee. And Hannah answered and said, No, my master, I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but have poured out my soul before Yah. Count not thine handmaid a daughter of Eve, for out of thy abundance of my complaint and grief have I spoken hitherto. Then Eli answered and said, Go in peace, and Yahshua the Elohim grant thee thy petition that thou hast asked of him.
So he granted her petition. Not only did she bear a son, but he really did carry out all the missions of the Most High and was guided by him. He walked by faith and not by sight. He carried out everything that the Father needed him to do. And Hannah also had other children that were there with her for her to raise and to comfort. While the child she vowed and promised for Yah went out and did exactly that. She kept her promise because she meant it, because that was the humble place that she was in. So again, the scripture says not to make vows and promises, and a big part of that is you better be prepared to keep it. By any means necessary, you better be prepared to keep it. So it's probably best just not to say it, but this was all in the Most High's will. This was a very, very beautiful story, and I'm sure her husband was happy with her, for her, just as well as she was. But the mission was complete. Let's go to the book of Ruth. Book of Ruth. And we're going to go to chapter 3. And we're going to read verse 12 and 13.
The book of Ruth, chapter 3, and verse 12. And now it is true that I am thy near kinsman. Howbeit there is a kinsman nearer than I. Tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning, that if he will perform unto thee the part of the kinsman well, let him do the kinsman part. But if he will not do the part of the kinsman to thee, then I will do the part of the kinsman to thee.
So let me break this down a little bit and give you a little bit of backstory. Here in the book of Ruth, her husband passed away, but he did not born a man-child. He did not have a seed taken up into him and for him. And Ruth's mother-in-law, Naomi, and her, got together. She stayed by her mother-in-law's side, and they went back to their original land, leaving out of the land of Moab to come search for the next kinsman. The law back then was if a man did not take up seed with the wife that he had, and then he passed away. It's interesting. We were talking about wills and such earlier. You see how it all comes together. Just keep on flowing together. Go, Ruth. That's what I'm talking about. So, as they got back, her mother-in-law Naomi told her to go and talk to Boaz appropriately. She went and met with him. She fell asleep at his feet. Nothing inappropriate that happened or occurred. But she told him, just show yourself, kind unto him. And him understanding the law, he said, look, I understand that you're here to be redeemed and to be married and to take up seed of your deceased husband. However, there is a kinsman that is actually next in line by law. that has to be offered for you and the land that the deceased husband left first. It has to be done decently and in order. You can't skip over something just because you want what you want. He may have wanted to marry her, she may have wanted to marry him, but if there is a line, you can't be just cutting people in line. Or we're going back to the kitchen. You can't add and change out a recipe just because if it calls for heavy cream, but all you got is milk, it's not going to turn out the same way if you add in the milk and not the heavy cream. There's a reason why the recipe is what it is. And the way YediYah has ordained this, he's not taking away or adding or switching up his laws. He's counting on us to follow it the right way so that we can really see how he moves. So instead of them just doing what they wanted to do, because he could have laid with her and then she would have been defiled, and we don't know what would have happened after that. But they decided, even though this is what we want, let's do it Abba's way first, and then allow whatever happens to let Abba have his way. So this is what's going on right now. She's talking to the man, but he said, I'm going to do this the right way. And let's see what that right way looked like as we go to Ruth chapter 4, verse 1. Yep, Ruth chapter 4 and verse 1.
Ruth chapter 4, verse 1. Then went Boaz up to the gate and sat him down there, and behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spake about came.
So the actual next in line to kin, he went and spoke with him. And I'm going to break this down a little bit more too, because there's 2 or 3 witnesses. They exceeded that number, but at least it was done decently and in order. Continue.
And he said, Ho, such a one, turn aside, sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down. Verse 2, and he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, sit ye down here.
He took 10 elders to observe this. And you can imagine this like, I don't want to say like a court case because it wasn't necessarily a judgment. Sometimes lawyers get together and just kind of hash it out. But these 2 individuals, he came to the man one-on-one, not because there was an aunt, but because there was a legal matter to discuss. And he got 10 elders that are observing to make sure that the law was done correctly, that there are witnesses, and that things are going to be done right, and what the outcome was. Somebody can bear witness, and can't nobody go back and say, no, that ain't what happened, this is what happened. Those elders wasn't about to let it go down like that, because it had to be done right. So, because people's reputations meant a lot back then. The scripture says, a good name is greater than gold. So, you want witnesses, you want reliable witnesses, you want elders who've been around the block and know a thing or two. Right? So he had 10 elders around. You had the original kinsman that's next in line, and then Boaz would be next in line after him if he does not accept. So, and then here's how the conversation continues.
Verse 3, and he said unto the kinsman, Naomi, that is come again out of the country of Moab, selleth a parcel of land which was our brother Elimelech's. And I thought to advertise thee, saying, buy it before the inhabitants and before the elders of my people. If thou wilt redeem it, redeem it. But if thou wilt not redeem it, then tell me, that I may know. For there is none to redeem it beside thee, and I am after thee. And he said, I will redeem it.
So he said, I will say that again. I'm sorry.
And he said, I will redeem it.
So the original redeemer said, oh, okay, so Naomi came back. She's got some land. The brother that passed away, he left this behind, and I'm next in line to redeem. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for being honest. He didn't leave anything out. He kept it forthright or whatever. Now, the conversation does continue. But originally, the original Redeemer said, okay, that's cool. Thank you for letting me know. I will redeem it. And I'm sure the elders are over there taking notes about it, keeping record of it. But then what happened?
Verse 5, then said Boaz, what day thou buyest the field of the hand, which day do thou buyest the field of the hand of Naomi? Thou must buy it also of Ruth, the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance.
So, in order to also take the land by law of this, you take all the inheritance from the deceased one if you are next in line to redeem. So, if you're going to redeem this land, you must also redeem his now righteous widowed wife. And marry her and take her as your wife as well, and take up seed unto the one who has deceased of the firstborn son. And so now he's got the whole picture. The original Redeemer now has the whole picture. You can't take one without the other. Go ahead.
And the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar my own inheritance.
So because of the stipulation with Ruth being attached to it, for some reason or another, he said that this would mar his own inheritance. Now, I don't know what his inheritance was from his father. Maybe whatever particular inheritance he had something to do with whoever his first wife was supposed to be, that his father said in order for him to get this inheritance, or maybe he already had 2 wives, and part of his inheritance is that he would only have 2 and not 3. Whatever was going on with him, for the reason why he could not interrupt the legal documents and break the contracts that he already had for his own inheritance, it kept him from being able to take Ruth and land. Good.
Redeem thou my right to thyself, for I cannot redeem it. Verse 7. Now this was the matter in the former tongue of Israel concerning the redeeming and concerning changing, for to confirm all things. A man plucked off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor, and this was a testimony in Israel. Now therefore the kinsman said unto Boaz, Buy it for thee. So he drew off his shoe. And Boaz said unto the elders and unto all the people, Ye are witness to this day that I have bought all that was Elimelech's, and all that was Chilion's, and the Mahlon's, and at the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren.
Hallelujah.
And from the gate of this place ye are witnesses to this day. 11. And all the people that were in the gate and the elders said, We are witnesses. And Yah made the woman that is to come into thy hand like Rachel and like Leah, which two did build the house of Israel, and do thou worthily in Ephrathah, and the famous in Bethlehem. 12.
And so you notice he even referenced, Rachel and Leah here, because these different recipes are recipes for a reason. For some reason, it wasn't meant for the original Redeemer to take Ruth, but Boaz did. They had a child. His name was Obed, and I'm going to read the lineage just here in a second. But even comparing it to Rachel and Leah, for a while, Rachel's womb was closed up, but Leah's was on and popping, right? And she was having children, and eventually Rachel's womb opened up, and she was able to conceive as well. Originally, Jacob wasn't even there for Leah. There was some stuff going on with Laban, and he's like, look, you can't take one without the other. But the Most High still used it for good. It's still his recipe. It's still his direction, at the end of it all. And so I don't know. We don't know what the child taken up into seed would have grown up like, in order for this recipe to continue on, for the lineage to be that of what it was. Do you see where to skip down to where the lineage is? Where Obed begat and so-and-so begat?
And these are the generations of Perez.
Yes.
Okay. Just go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, verse 18. Now these are the generations of Perez. Perez begat Hezron, and Hezron begat Ram. Ram begat Amminadab, and Amminadab begat Nahshon, and Nahshon begat Salmon. Salmon begat Boaz, and Boaz begat Obed.
So Boaz was the one who was the second in line to redeem with Ruth, and then they had Obed. And who did Obed begat?
Obed begat Jesse.
We recognize Jesse from the father and all the sons he had, and Samuel was like, now we're waiting for the smallest one, and the smallest one came in as who?
David.
King David. And begot David. And again, we don't know why, but again, stay out of the kitchen. It's not your job to know why. It's not your job to know when. Man your station. Man your own specific station. Watch your own clock. And the Abba will tell you, what time it is for when it's time for you. These various recipes, I like to kind of compare it to, anybody ever had a really good homemade cinnamon roll? I mean, you smell them. It'll wake you up out your sleep. Like I said, we must have did something good. We must have got straight A's.
Yeah.
Or Mama didn't find the things I did wrong because she got cinnamon rolls in the oven. That's the one time you didn't interrupt the kitchen because you wanted them to turn out good. They was ooey, they was gooey. They be so good you don't even need icing. You just need it, Mama. You tell me when it's ready. I'll wait patiently. The quietest your child will ever be. Drop a video game controller in a heartbeat. Now compare that same homemade cinnamon roll to a Cinnabon at the mall.
Nah, I can't do that.
You feel me? You go to the mall. Well, he can't because you know why? Because it's flashy, right? You go to the mall, you ain't at home next to the oven. You feel me? So you see Cinnabon, they come in this big old crazy box. The center of the Cinnabon is kind of soft, but that outer layer is kind of hard, kind of crusty. It's a little dry. It's a little dry. It's a little polished. It's neglected, right? Somebody wasn't watching that oven. Somebody wasn't watching that stove. Somebody's clock was a little off. And then by the time you buy the Cinnabon, you pay all this money for it. You go over there, you open up the box. You can't even eat the first layer. I want to at least have my money back. Now the icing on it, because it's been sitting there for so long, it's kind of like chipping off on the edges. You can kind of see the bad ingredients that really ain't got no business eating in the first place. You want your mama's homemade cinnamon rolls. You don't want the quick, fast food, store-bought, rushed, chemically made. You don't want all that. You want the very patiently made, handcrafted, slow rising icing, just kind of grazed over. You know, there's a difference between icing and frosting. If it's frosting, it's sat out too long. Because if frosting, you want it iced. You want it grilled. You want it creamy, right? You know what I'm saying? So, and it's the same thing with how YediYah is with these recipes about these children. I want this and I want this right now. If I give it to you right now, it's going to be a Cinnabon at the mall. But if you just wait, allow that whiff and aroma to just poke your eyes up just a little bit. Like, you cinnamon roll there, right? You'll enjoy it so much more. It's so important to lean not on our own understanding because we don't know the outcome. He don't need us to know the outcome. Receive the end of the road. Receive it because you'll receive it so much better. Sometimes after you've been through some of the things that you've been through. Gold is tried in the fire, but the only way for the gold to come out is to go into the fire. Yeah, the fire's hot, it burns, but once you get out all those impurities, you can up that price tag on it. And I don't know about you all, but I mean, I'm sticking to my diet. I will say that. But spiritually speaking, I want cinnamon rolls. I don't want something cheap. I don't want something fast. I don't want something man-made. The clock that's on my wrist that you think that you can't see is here. It's spiritually right on my wrist. And when Abba says it's time, whether it be for a child, whether it be for that husband or wife that you're waiting for, whether it be for my eyesight, whether it be for your car, whatever it is, let perfect patience have its perfect work at the appointed time. Shabbat Shalom, family.
Shalom.